Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Tabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic, debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're not following me on Instagram, my name is Charles Tabansi. My handle is CTABANZ. Also, if you want to follow Dreamerspro on Instagram, it's the same name as the channel. And make sure you check out the Dreamerspro podcast that we have pinned in the comment section below. Now, as you guys know, Skip Bayless currently has his rotating panel on Undisputed Live, right? And he went back to his old roots when he was at ESPN, when he was first on the show Cold Pizza. Now, if you guys remember at the time, Cold Pizza was ultimately rebranded into First Take, right? And at that time, Skip Bayless was the main figure on the show. He was a staple of the show. Then there was a moderator like Jay Crawford. And of course, they would now bring in a rotating cast. Some days it would be Chris Broussard. You would have Rob Parker. Stephen A. Smith would come in on some days. And then at other times, you would have various athletes like Chris Carter, Chris Bosh, and others. But then on one particular occasion, they had Jalen Rose made a guest appearance on the show. And if you know anything about Skip Bayless, he can be disrespectful at times. So during their back and forth, you know, Skip sometimes likes to make things personal. And one day he tried to make things personal, and Jalen Rose essentially called him out like, well, Skip, how many points did you average when you played basketball? And it became this viral, very, very, very awkward moment. And then the next day, I remember this, the next day, Stephen A. Smith had to come on the show to basically play peacemaker on the show. And ever since that spat, we never saw Jalen Rose make an appearance ever again on ESPN First Take. So what happened? This morning I was doing some research and I came across an article. I believe it was via Fadeaway World. And it was highlighting a video from Awful Announcing where they were interviewing former moderator on ESPN First Take, Jay Crawford. And the interviewer essentially asked him to give an account of what took place that day and ultimately the aftermath of Jalen Rose ultimately being banned from First Take by Skip Bayless. So that's what they were talking about. But before we even get into that, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Aura. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is today? It's identity theft. Imagine trying to log into your email only to see that your password has been changed. Then you start getting weird notifications from your bank and credit cards only to find out that all of your personal and sensitive information has been totally compromised. If you think it can happen to you and your family, just know that in 2020, over 49 million Americans were victims to identity theft, costing them a combined $56 billion. That is why we are excited to partner with Aura, who's the sponsor of this video. Aura is the #1 identity theft and financial fraud protection. Aura monitors the dark web and alerts you if any of your passwords and accounts have been breached. And funny enough, after using Aura, I discovered some of my credentials were floating around in the dark web, and the app showed me exactly when and where the breach happened. In addition, Aura allows you to set spending alerts and they'll notify you of any suspicious transactions. Aura is 4 times faster than any of its competitors in alerting you if someone is trying to open a credit card or obtain a loan using your name. And remember this, every 14 seconds, someone becomes a victim of identity fraud. Don't let it happen to you. Now click the link in the description and try Aura for free for 2 weeks and see if any of you or your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial at aura.com/dreamerspro. And when you try Aura, by using the link in the description below, also know that you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So what we want to do is want to play this audio, and I want you guys to listen carefully to the play-by-play of what took place that day and subsequently after. So take a listen to what Jay Crawford had to say here to Awful Announcing, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to that there.
Did it seem like, did other people like working with them? Because like I also think after the Skip and Shannon relationship started to deteriorate earlier this year, there were a lot of kind of narratives out there that nobody wants to work with Skip, and everybody seemed more interested in going to First Take and working with Stephen A. At least while you were there, did other people enjoy being on the show with them?
Yeah, I don't think anybody. Now, I remember Jalen Rose had a problem with Skip, and then ultimately Skip with Jalen over the Water Pistol Pete comment. You know, this was toward the end, and at this point, I had already decided that my days here have got to be short or I'm going to quit the business. Like, I've got to find something else within ESPN. So I was already there, and I knew it was just a matter of weeks before I went to SportsCenter. But I do remember the show where, just in the context of having a conversation, Skip had mentioned to Jalen, what have you won? You know, you and I have won the same number of NBA championships or something along those lines. And I never like it when Skip would do that. And he did do that with a number of guys. The other guy that I remember he did that with that rubbed the wrong way was Chris Carter. Like, Don't tell a Hall of Famer like Chris Carter, you know, you never won anything.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, there's certain things you can't say to an alpha male that has deserved all of our respect. And Chris used to hate it when he would do that. And I know Jalen wasn't in love with it. And this particular day when he brought it up, Jalen had enough. And he just said, Skip, is it true that you averaged 1.2 points a game your senior year in high school? Or maybe it was 2.1. I can't remember. And Skip was thunderstruck. And I was thunderstruck. I was just like, what's happening here? And Skip said, yeah, it is. But there's a reason for that. And so he started going into this story about how the coach's son also was the point guard. And, you know, here we are now. We're discussing in front of a very large audience Skip Bayless' senior year in high school. Like, yeah. I knew that was only going to end poorly. I knew it. And so then he said, your idol was Pistol Pete. Well, you're Water Pistol Pete. And you could hear the voices in the control room go, uh-oh. And everybody in the studio got quiet. And I was in the middle of it. And I tried to graciously get us out of it and get us to a commercial break. But when we got there, it was ice in the studio. Like, it was not a good scene. And we came to work the next day. I had some conversations with Jalen after the show. I had some conversations with Skip after the show. I'm trying to be the peacemaker. And I thought we were in a good place. And then I found out that this thing was about to go to a whole new level. I came in the next morning, and I'd mentioned Jamie, who was our CP at the time.
Yeah.
And it had just recently taken over the show. He loved Skip. He was all in on Skip. He's at the morning meeting, and he tells us, so we're going to start the show today with an uninterrupted monologue from Skip. I'm not making this up. Explaining why he only averaged, 2.1 points a game in high school. And Jalen was there. Jalen was going to be there, and we were going to, and I said immediately, we're not doing this. Like, there's no way we're going to do this. And I was told, oh no, we're doing this. This is so important to Skip that we don't know if he's going to do the show today if we don't do this. So I understand Skip wanted to defend what was now his record as I'm sure he never thought he'd be in a position to do that. And here's Jalen, a guy who, was part of the Fab Five, had a nice professional career. And he's involved with this show now where one of the hosts is going to explain why he only averaged 1.2 points a game. It got out of control. I've never talked to Skip about it. I don't know how he feels about it today. He doesn't change his mind, so he's probably just as adamant that was the right thing to do in that moment. But then came word that Skip was never, Jalen was never allowed to do another First Take ever again. Like, it was, he was a banned guest. He was banished. And at that time, Skip had that kind of power on First Take because, again, the show was taken to heights we had never reached. And Skip was the guy that took us there. No question about it.
So you heard what he had to say in the audio. First of all, I believe 100% of everything that was said. Skip Bayless has a history of trying to disrespect, of disrespecting athletes to their face. Even on First Take, they brought on Chris Bosh, who at the time he used to call Bosh Spice, from the Spice Girls. And Chris Bosh said, I don't like you turning my last name into some type of joke on television. And Skip said, I'll stop calling you Bosh Spice when you stop playing like that. That's what Skip said. And it was the same thing he tried to do. The same thing he did to Shannon Sharpe, where he was like, who cares if you're a former Hall of Famer? You're jealous of Tom Brady, and you were nowhere near the player that Tom Brady was. The only difference was Jalen Rose wasn't going for it. Jalen Rose was not going for it at all. At all. And it's one of the reasons why I think that, Skip and Jalen would have made some good TV, man. Honestly. Because Jalen Rose ain't going to, he's not going to put up with what Shannon Sharpe put up with. Shannon Sharpe bit his tongue on many occasions. Right? And I don't think Jalen Rose would have done that, but this is the reputation that Skip Bayless has developed for himself over time. Right? This is the reputation that he has. I think it's something that he embraces. Skip seems to be someone that is set in his ways. Usually people of that age are. So it's not a Skip Bayless thing, but him particularly. I don't see him changing his stripes, and he may look at you, if you ask him to, he will look you dead in his face like, why would I need to listen to you to change my stripes? I mean, look at the position that I'm in. So clearly it is working. But in that particular instant, Jalen Rose wasn't going for it. Jalen Rose, funny enough, has been one of the people at ESPN that got Stephen A. Smith to stop calling NBA players scrubs. He actually got Stephen A. Smith to stop calling NBA players scrubs because, Stephen A. Smith was infamous for calling NBA players scrubs, and Jalen Rose. So Jalen Rose, even though he has a nice smile, he has a fresh haircut, he's not going for any of the nonsense or the disrespect, and he'll give it to you. He won't be bombastic. He won't be confrontational, but he'll give it to you, as they say, killing them softly. That's exactly what he would do. To me, it's interesting, however, what Jay Crawford is saying, that Skip banned him from coming back to the show, and I can believe it. I think that that's something that Skip Bayless is fully capable of doing. So none of this really surprises me. So what I want to know from you guys is this. Are you surprised to hear that Skip Bayless ultimately banned Jalen Rose from coming on ESPN First Take? And secondly, do you think that Skip and Jalen Rose, if they were to reunite on Undisputed, they would make good TV together? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. And we'll catch you guys on the next show. Peace.